You actually bring that binder to meetings? That's what the new VP of Ops sneered as I placed my blue folder labeled Key Person Attestations on the conference table. Same spot it's lived every Monday at 9:10 for the last 7 years. He chuckled to the room, called it my paper church, and asked if I prayed over it too. Real knee slapper. The others laughed, weakly. No one looks directly at the adult in the room when they're busy trying to impress the toddler in a suit. The binder contains every signed affidavit, renewal confirmation, and continuity certificate tied to our risk and insurance coverage. Boring, silent things. But they're the spine that keeps $345 million worth of acquisition chatter from folding in on itself. That number's not mine to announce, but I know it like I know how many steps from my desk to legal, 44. Because when the stakes are that high, people don't want to understand continuity. They want to assume it. They want to believe the house is standing because of the view, not because someone checked the foundation every damn week. That someone is me. While VP Buzzcut plays corporate savior with his zero-sum org chart and his synergy heat maps, I file another certificate. While he's whispering about leaning out legacy overhead, I'm checking that the underwriter didn't swap policy riders in the last renewal round. And while he's misquoting Bezos in the break room, I'm emailing the insurer with Schedule J confirmations for next week's diligence cycle. His job is to sound impressive. Mine is to make sure the buyer's money doesn't catch fire mid-air. Speaking of, quick thing, if you've made it this far into the story and you're even halfway invested in seeing how this turns out, do us a solid, hit the like button, and if you're not subscribed yet, click that too. 97% of folks listen without subscribing, but it really helps keep these stories coming. All right, back to it. My name's in black ink, second page of the insurance covenant under continuity signatory, my name. The CEO's seen it, legal's seen it. Hell, the buyer's compliance lead forwarded it back in May with a thanks for staying on top of this note and a smiley face. But none of that matters now, because a 34-year-old boy wonder who once hosted a podcast called Process is for Cowards has decided I'm too expensive for his narrative. So I do my Monday ritual. 9:10, binder open, sign the latest affidavit, legal reviews it, I upload it to the continuity archive and click confirm. The work gets done. Quiet, sharp, and exactly on time. And just like that, the final continuity certificate before closing is filed. I lean back, sip cold coffee, and smile. Not because I'm proud, because I know exactly what happens when someone forgets who keeps the lights on, and because this time, the lights are about to go out for someone else. The first thing they did wrong was thinking I'd cry. VP Buzzcut, that's what I call him now because I never bothered to learn his name and I sure as hell won't start posthumously. Waited until after lunch. Timing strategic. Blood sugars low. Nerves frayed. Inboxes bloated. I was triple-checking a vendor coverage memo when HR's director of niceties tapped on my glass door with a soft knuckle knock reserved for firings, flu outbreaks, and company-wide password resets. Behind her, security. 2 of them. They always come in pairs now, like some kind of corporate Noah's Ark. 1 male, 1 female, both in polos that try way too hard not to look like uniforms. I looked past them and saw Buzzcut pacing the hallway, chin up, like he'd just benched the quarterback in the 4th quarter and wanted ESPN to notice. I didn't even close my laptop. Just stood, tucked my pen into the binder and said, "Do we at least get a meeting or are we going full drive-by?" HR flinched. She always did hate how calm I was. She handed me a single sheet with the words, organizational restructuring in bold, as if that meant anything to anyone who's ever watched a toddler with scissors. Buzzcut stepped in then, all theater and swagger. "We're making some hard calls. Streamlining, efficiency," he said, like someone who once read a McKinsey summary in an Uber ad. "Frankly, your role's redundant." I raised an eyebrow. "So is your vocabulary." He didn't laugh. HR slid the little cardboard box across the desk, and for a second I thought, is that it? 7 years of keeping this company's spine straight and I get a sad box and a script? "You'll be escorted out now. Please don't access the system during your transition window," HR added, eyes darting everywhere but my face. I nodded, opened the box, and without a word slid my blue binder in first. Like hell I'd leave that behind. Binder went in. Stapler. Mug. That tiny stress pig from last year's compliance retreat. Then, I handed over my badge like I was tipping a waitress who got the order wrong, but still deserved to get home safe. Security flanked me like I was about to detonate. As we passed the hallway outside legal, I caught my reflection in the glass. Calm, crisp. A woman escorted out like a criminal for the crime of being unshiny and indispensable. But the best part? I wasn't even to my car yet when my phone buzzed. Slack notification because someone forgot to revoke access. Legal, 2:43 p.m. Hey, quick one. Can you confirm next week's continuity affidavit is signed and uploaded? Due be Friday. Timestamp. 5 minutes after I was fired. I smiled so hard my jaw clicked. They really didn't read the fine print, did they? And that's when it hit me. Not just the punch of being discarded like packing foam, but the spark underneath. I wasn't just fired. I was removed from a contract. A contract that doesn't work without me. You want redundant? Watch what happens when I go quiet. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of panic, not even out of rage. I've felt both before. This was something colder, quieter. I sat at my kitchen table with the same binder they mocked and opened it like a priest might crack a holy book before war. The cat jumped up once, saw my face, and jumped right back down. Smart animal. First, I checked the continuity clause with the insurer's portal because I knew what it said, but I needed screenshots, PDFs, audit trails. I searched for the document. Schedule J, Risk and Insurance Provisions. There it was. Third line under Conditions of Policy Validity. Continuity of named key person through date of transaction close, or formal successor designation, ratified by board no fewer than 90 days prior. The name? Mine. I double-checked the writer on my original offer letter, too, tucked behind a yellowing sticky note from my second week on the job. Continuity officer designation to be maintained for a duration of term unless revoked by vote of executive leadership and insurer concurrence. Never revoked, not even discussed. Just buzz cut out of nowhere with his redundant decree and a box like the story was over. It wasn't. I wasn't. So I did what the toddlers always forget. We adults take notes. I opened Outlook from my personal machine and searched. Attestation signed. Over 90 emails, weekly threads with the broker, time-stamped certificates, insurance confirmations. The most recent? From Karen M., Risk Broker, Ryswick & Co. Subject, confirmation of key person affidavit, pre-close. Thanks as always, we're green on the covenant language through next Friday's close. Cheers. I pulled it all into a folder called Continuity Receipts. Clean, crisp, unambiguous. Then I called Karen directly. Same number as always, same AKM husky voice that never needed coffee. Hey Karen, quick one for you. What happens if the key person in the insurance schedule gets terminated 5 days before close? Dead silence on the other end. Then, tell me you're not calling from your personal phone. I'm not calling from it. Another beat. Then, flatly, if you're not employed, continuity is broken. Coverage is invalidated. Buyer will have to pause or renegotiate unless there's a board-ratified replacement named 90 days prior. That hasn't happened, has it? Nope. Well, she sighed, they just hit the brakes on a $345 million sale. I thanked her. Didn't say much else. Instead, I spent the rest of the morning building a little care package. Binder open, desktop humming. Into it went the original offer letter writer, every insurer email confirming my status. The most recent affidavit, signed and dated the Slack from legal asking for the next one after I was fired. And, just for sport, a screen cap of the policy clause with my name highlighted in digital yellow. I zipped it up, named the file Continuity Trigger Zip, and emailed it to myself. BCC'd a lawyer I trust, just in case. Then I turned off all notifications, made tea, and watched the company intranet access expire. They thought I'd be loud, emotional, messy. Instead, I went dark, precise, surgical. Because sometimes the loudest alarm is a woman going silent, with evidence. By Thursday morning, the seams had started to show, not tearing yet, but tugging just enough to be felt. I wasn't watching their Slack channels anymore, obviously, but you can smell panic even from outside the building, especially when you know exactly which wires are about to spark. The buyer's side had kicked off final diligence. It was all routine. on paper. Confirmations of IP escrow, executive retention agreements, a few legacy vendor cleanups, and of course, insurance continuity. The magic word. They dropped a shared diligence tracker that morning. Standard sheet, tabs for every section. Legal, ops, finance, insurance. One line on tab 9 said, Schedule J, insurance covenant, confirm key person status as of closing date. Next to it, my name. Then, someone, probably an intern, struck it through. Red text. Terminated, CHRIS. That's when the flicker started. They must have updated the HRIS system right on schedule, proud little clockwork move, status marked terminated org restructure. Someone with access probably felt real efficient clicking that drop down, maybe even attached the canned HR letter I got. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the insurance clause isn't tied to a role. It's tied to a person. A person the insurer approved, the board never replaced, and the buyer explicitly cited as a continuity condition in their financing covenant. At 10:41 a.m., a message popped up in my inbox. From Karen M. Subject. Weird bounce. FYI, buyer's legal just pinged me asking if you're still our key person. They said your internal record shows you've been let go. They're confused. Didn't forward your affidavit yet. You okay? I texted her back. Peachy, don't say anything yet. Let it breathe. Because here's the thing. Once legal starts smelling smoke, they don't yell. They whisper, carefully, in circles. I imagined the moment vividly. Some junior counsel with a law degree and 3 hours of sleep squinting at the tracker, double-checking names, then flipping to the covenant's Schedule J, then calling over the buyer's attorney. Hey, is she supposed to be terminated? Because this covenant doesn't have a plan B. From there, I picture the inboxes pinging. To legal, confirm key person status. To HR, please verify employment date against continuity schedule. To Buzzcut, probably. Need clarity on continuity process pre-close. And Buzzcut? He'd be scrambling for a policy he's never read, calling compliance to just resend the latest version, not realizing the latest version has my signature and nothing, absolutely nothing after. At home, I flipped my phone face down and just smiled. Not out of spite, not yet. This wasn't a win. It was a moment of gravity pulling everything into alignment. They fired the one person holding the bolt that kept the wheel on, and now they were watching the tire wobble on the highway, pretending it wasn't loose. Meanwhile, Karen had already forwarded them the previous continuity affidavit, signed, time-stamped, and valid only while I was employed. The expiration date? Same as the termination date. There's no grace period, no auto-renewal. The minute my badge deactivated, so did the covenant. I refreshed the shared tracker once more. Someone had added a new comment. Urgent. Review of key person coverage required before next call. They thought this process was about numbers, graphs, and growth curves. It was about my name, my literal name, and now it had a strike through it. Good luck explaining that at the signing table. It happened during what was supposed to be the final joint diligence call. Cameras off, mics muted, everyone pretending to be composed while surrounded by crumpled Post-its and lukewarm coffee. Legal from both sides, execs, a junior analyst or two clicking away on shared trackers, and the buyer's lead counsel, Eleanor Wicks, crisp voice, no fluff, always 2 questions ahead. About halfway in, they were confirming the standard list. Tax clearance, retention plans, transition services. And then Eleanor cleared her throat. Just once. Quiet, but sharp enough to stop 3 departments mid-scroll. One issue before we proceed to closing prep, she said. Schedule J, insurance provisions, lists a continuity requirement tied to a specific key person. Pause. A long one. My name wasn't even on the call, but I could feel the temperature drop from 5 zip codes away. We received confirmation from your HR system yesterday, she continued, tone now colder than surgical steel, that this individual was terminated earlier this week. Buzzcut probably started sweating first. He never could handle direct questions unless they came with a slide deck. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for, not revenge, just the clock striking the exact second you said it would. Eleanor didn't flinch. She didn't shout. She simply read the clause aloud, word for word. The designated key person, My full name must remain employed through close date unless a board-approved successor is named no less than 90 days in advance. Failure to comply invalidates insurance coverage under Schedule J. Then, has a successor been ratified by the board? Silence. Legal shifted in their chairs. Ops probably stared at the ceiling. HR, I imagine, briefly considered leaving the country. Finally, the CEO spoke, voice low, like someone realizing their parachute was just a backpack. Please tell me you didn't. No one answered. Eleanor pressed again. If there's no key person, then per covenant language, insurance coverage is non-compliant. Our financing partner will not proceed with invalidated coverage. We are pausing the $345 million agreement until coverage is restored, or we receive a board-certified successor meeting the required term. The line went dead quiet. Somewhere on that call, Buzzcut was watching his promotion disintegrate like tissue paper in a rainstorm. And I was on my porch, coffee in hand, watching my tomato plants sway in the wind. The universe doesn't always give you applause. Sometimes it just goes silent and lets you feel the weight shift. 12 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Legal, not the nice one. The fire alarm under a pillow one. We need a path to cure. The buyer just issued an intent to pause. They've asked if there's any way to revalidate the coverage with you. We didn't realize you were that critical. I didn't laugh, not even a smirk. Instead, I stood, walked back inside, and reached for my binder. I'll send terms. I didn't send a resume. I sent a one-page term sheet, title at the top, Continuity Cure Conditions. No fluff, no apologies, no dotted lines filled in. Just bulletproof asks, line by line, written in language that doesn't beg, it instructs. Line 1, reinstatement as continuity officer via LLC contractor agreement. No W-2, no employee ID, no office politics. Line 2, full advance payment covering 90 days of retained service, non-refundable. Line 3, indemnity clause shielding me from liability arising from pre-termination decisions tied to insurance oversight. Line 4, written acknowledgement from insurer revalidating coverage upon my reinstatement. Line 5, revocation of risk, oversight authority from the VP of Ops, effective immediately. Line 6, all future continuity sign-offs to include designated backup officer and legal co-signature. The signature block at the bottom, empty. I wanted them to feel the silence of it, not a dotted line they could scribble on out of habit. A void they'd have to earn the right to fill. When I emailed it, I attached nothing else. No cover note, no pleasantries, just a subject line. Cure path. Time sensitive. 10 minutes later, legal replied, not with edits, just a single question. Do you have capacity to begin filing attestations again this week? I let it sit for 20 minutes. Then I replied, upon executed terms. I don't do preemptive trust anymore. An hour after that, I got looped into a thread with the buyer's counsel. The tone? Entirely different from the boardroom swagger they wore before. Eleanor, sharp as ever, was surgical. We will issue a 48-hour cure notice if continuity isn't reinstated with confirmed coverage by close of business Friday. The revised acquisition offer will reflect a 34 millimeters reduction in purchase price. That email hit their executive thread like a lit match in a fireworks stand. The CEO responded immediately. How do we execute reinstatement fastest? Buzzcut was silent. Not CC'd, not mentioned, not relevant anymore. I responded directly to Eleanor. I'll provide refiled attestations and continuity confirmation within 6 hours of signed agreement. Karen, my broker, was copied in. She replied within 3 minutes. Coverage can be revalidated same day upon formal reinstatement. Clause compliance hinges entirely on her re-entry. They thought they were shedding dead weight. Turns out, I was the counterbalance keeping the whole beam steady. Meanwhile, the board convened behind closed doors. I wasn't invited. I didn't need to be. I had already written the script. They'd built a narrative where risk was optional, where process could be edited out for aesthetics. But I wrote in ink, and my claws didn't fade just because they wanted a cleaner ending. Now, the only thing standing between them and a multi-million-dollar price cut was my silence, or my signature. They made their choice by noon. The real signing would happen next. on my terms. They convened the board that same evening. Emergency session, no minutes taken, not officially anyway. I wasn't there, but Karen was kind enough to relay the color commentary afterward. VP Buzzcut, cornered, was reportedly red-faced and stammering about how it was just paperwork. Just paperwork. The $345 million deal he nearly set on fire with a single click was, in his mind, a clerical oversight, like misspelling vendor or ordering decaf for a partner call. He didn't even know how the covenant worked. He hadn't read the schedule. He just assumed I was one of those people who quietly did things he never had to understand. The CEO apparently stared at him for a full 5 seconds and then muttered, "You're done." Not fired, just done. Like a faulty plug pulled from the wall and dropped in a drawer. An hour later, my phone rang. Direct line, no more intermediaries. "This is CEO's name. We've reviewed your terms. If you're still available, we're prepared to sign." I said nothing for a beat. Let the silence breathe. "I'll send final counters within the hour. Agreement will be under my LLC. All attestations refiled within 6 hours of execution." He didn't argue. By 9:12 p.m., the contract was signed. The wire confirmation hit 5 minutes later. I didn't pop champagne. I opened the binder, turned to the tab labeled Reinstatement, and began filling out the new certificates. This time, the title read, Continuity Officer, Retained Consultant. At 11:08 p.m., I emailed Karen and the insurer. All filings re-executed, coverage reinstated per covenant conditions, confirmation attached. Their response was fast, clinical, and absolute. Coverage validated. No disruption to covenant compliance. That's it. No apology, no fanfare, just a green light restored and a deadline no longer bleeding. I didn't go back into the office. They never even asked. I wouldn't have. The point wasn't the desk, the badge, or the hallway stairs. The point was the function, the role, the thing they thought they could delete without consequence. Now, they'd updated the org chart, not with my old title, not even in the same box. They built a new line, separate, permanent, one that reports only to legal and the CEO. They gave me my own clause. Buzzcut's badge was disabled before midnight, his access revoked. His name didn't appear in the final coverage summary. Mine did, twice. I flipped the lights back on, not because I wanted to walk back in, but because the work matters, because someone had to. They thought they could erase the risk. Turns out, I held the pen. The next morning, I opened a blank document and titled it the way only someone who's bled for a system does. SOP Addendum, Continuity Governance Protocol, V1.0, not revenge, not even victory. This was infrastructure. Quiet scaffolding to make sure no one could ever clean house with a sledgehammer again without checking the foundation first. The first clause was simple. Continuity officer designation shall be role-based, not person-dependent, and supported by a documented deputy with insurer-recognized authority. That one hurt a little. It meant admitting someone else would eventually replace me. But better a named successor with training and sign-off rights than a clueless VP with an axe and a PowerPoint. Clause 2 was more surgical. No risk oversight or continuity role may be reassigned, terminated, or restructured within 120 days of a material transaction closing, without prior board approval and legal co-signature. In plain English, no more gutting the engine mid-flight because some MBA read a blog about efficiency. I outlined transition procedures, escalation paths, the exact format for future affidavits. I built backup workflows, inserted a quarterly training cadence, and hard-coded a 1-hour response SLA with our insurer. Every checkbox became a guardrail, every bullet a future shield. Then I sent it. To the buyer, to the insurer, to the board. Subject line, updated SOP, risk role, continuity compliance, per acquisition terms. No emotion, no commentary, just the system doing what it's supposed to do, inform, clarify, protect. The buyer replied within the hour. Thank you for the transparency. Please confirm we may rely on this for post-close compliance monitoring. The CEO replied next. This is excellent. I've forwarded it to legal and governance for inclusion in the permanent file. And Buzzcut, he was transitioned. That's what the internal memo said. Not fired, not demoted, just Transitioned. Into what? I don't know. Probably a non-compete clause and a severance envelope. I didn't need to know. I never asked. Because this was never about a name. It was about function, structure, continuity. They wanted to cut costs and ended up learning about cost centers the hard way. I wasn't a person to them until I became a clause in a contract they didn't control. But now? Now the next woman in my seat will have rules she can point to. Not instincts, not heroics, just ink. I didn't return to power. I redesigned where power lives, and once it lives in procedure, it outlasts personalities. They gave me 90 days. I gave them a governance protocol that'll live longer than any of them. Future-proofed, quiet, unshakable. And this time, no one's calling it just paperwork. The final closing call took place on a Friday, 2 p.m. sharp, though the buyer's counsel logged in 13 minutes early, just like she always did. Eleanor Wicks didn't do drama. She did documents, timelines, and the kind of questions that rearranged careers. The board was already on mute when I joined, my camera off, no name tag. Just the audio presence of someone they now referred to as essential. I sat at my kitchen counter, binder closed beside me for once. No need to prove anything anymore. I wasn't here to be the continuity officer. I was the reason they still had one. Eleanor ran through her checklist, each item locked in like bolts on a safe. IP escrow confirmed. Vendor reconciliations complete. Final tax exposure disclosures received. Then she paused, voice level but firm. Final confirmation required for Schedule J. Please state, for the record, the name and title of the designated key person on file per the Insurance Continuity Covenant. The silence was short, but thick enough to slice. Then the CEO spoke, voice clipped and controlled. Key person is my full name, Continuity Officer, Retained Consultant. Eleanor didn't nod. She just moved to the next line. Coverage has been validated. Karen's voice cut in, steady and confident. Yes, insurer has confirmed compliance based on reinstatement documentation provided by my name. The transcript would show it cleanly. Continuity confirmed by my full name, initialed by buyer's counsel, insurer. CEO, pens moved, signatures locked. The wire cleared by end of day. Just like that, the $345 million deal closed. I wasn't on payroll. I wasn't in the office. I wasn't even visible on the org chart, unless you looked at the footnote now attached to the risk compliance structure. Continuity oversight per SOP Addendum 1.0, contracted authority under LLC, non-revocable during transition term. They tried to erase me. Instead, they built a system that could no longer exist without the shape I left behind. The buyer sent one last email before the weekend. Please confirm availability for exclusive retention through Q3. I replied with one word, confirmed. Then I sent my first invoice. Not a return to staff, not a welcome back. Just a clean ledger, an LLC name, and a rate they didn't negotiate. I didn't burn the place down. I turned it into a case study. And when it was over, I poured myself a glass of wine, closed the binder for good, and whispered to no one. Redundant, apparently. Irreplaceable, contractually.